Yes, welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of the General Gaming Show. I am Bridger, I'll be your host for today. Unfortunately, couldn't get anybody else except for Freelancer, but that's okay, because if you've met us, you would know we don't need anybody else. We're all good on our own, right, Free?
Right. We're both very opinionated people. We can do this.
I'm sure we can fit a good deal in here. So, we are actually streaming in two places simultaneously. I know my internet is screaming in protest, but don't worry, we got this covered for now. What I'm going to do in a few minutes is drop the Twitch stream, so if you want to continue to watch the show, jump over to the YouTube stream, because, well, we want to keep testing it out and see how it works out for us. It has the ability to schedule things ahead of time and make it easier for people to see, hey, this is coming up. So if it works well and it works as good as Twitch, it might be a better option. That way I have everything that I use in the Google environment, etc., etc. The YouTube stream would be really far behind. It's got more of a delay than the Twitch stream does, which is why I'm probably going to wind up using the Twitch stream for just when I'm like playing and streaming and talking with people on TeamSpeak. But when we're doing a show like this, when time sensitivity isn't necessarily a factor, I might use the YouTube one. It has a delay option in there, which I think is on right now. I might be able to reduce that. But for now, go ahead and hop over to the YouTube channel, and as soon as we're done with the introduction here, we will turn off the Twitch stream and we can watch it right over there. So, let me know if you have any feedback in the comments of the YouTube channel there, if it looks good, if it looks bad, you think it looks better or worse than the Twitch stream normally looks. That would be fantastic. So let's jump into the show. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of gaming. Because right now we're sitting on the cusp of the next generation of consoles, and, well, actually, one of them's been out for a while, but that's another story. And we're also sort of getting into this area where the Oculus Rift, real, like, virtual reality type technology is coming. I mean, some people have created prototypes where you have a gun controller in hand, you're standing in a thing that lets you walk around, and at the same time you're looking through a VR. So that sounds really cool. We're going to talk all about that stuff coming up, both the high-tech and the regular console lineup that's coming up. But before we go there, I wanted to quickly remind you guys that we are... Team Legacy is a gaming community focused around mostly MMOs, but also a lot of other games in between MMOs. We started with Guild Wars 2, and we are now playing lots of games, and we'd love for you guys to come join us. You can find the TeamSpeak information on our webpage, which is teamlegacy.net. We're there often playing League of Legends, Team Fortress 2. I know there's a bunch of people playing Rift right now, getting back into that. Marvel Heroes is a big thing right now. It's kind of, we jump from game to game. A lot of them are free to play. TF2 and League of Legends, perfect examples, two of the biggest games we play because everybody can play them. So come, join us, hop in the forums, say hello. It's open to anybody that wants to come play with us. There's only one rule: don't be a dick. That's the main rule. And if you want to join our community for our upcoming games and become more involved in the actual organized guild and clan type systems, then that would be awesome as well. So, Free, I don't think I missed anything, did I?
No, but I'm curious though. What do you think of the whole YouTube versus Twitch thing? You're the one that's been playing with it a lot. Like, for a gamer that streams, I mean, what's your honest opinion?
Well, it definitely has quite a few convenience factors as far as that's concerned. I can, for example, simply, as soon as this broadcast is over, the link that I sent people to watch the stream is the link of the video after the fact. So normally when you send somebody a Twitch link, it's twitch.tv/Bridger15, and that is okay. If somebody goes there after the fact, they can find the previous videos. But this is a direct link, which is very nice. I think the other piece that's really nice is, as you mentioned yesterday, the comments that people make during the live show stay with the video after the fact as well. Also very useful. And it also allows you to plan and show people, hey, here's what's coming up in the future. If you go to the Sound Strategy Network YouTube channel, it will show you, hey, I have scheduled this event for next Saturday and this event for next Wednesday, and it'll easily be able to like see that right up front. And any live events will also be right up front there. It'll say, hey, this is playing right now. So that is very useful to me because every time I create an event, it goes out to everybody who's following me and lets them know, hey, are you interested in this new game Bridger's going to be playing on Wednesday? You might want to actually show up for this one. So I like it a lot, and so far I haven't found any downsides, but it's still in beta.
Well,
I'm still testing.
besides the delay, but you could also argue that that's probably a good thing, in some ways. So,
Yeah.
I mean, can you think of an instance where you would want your stream to be instant, when you're gaming? I mean, most people, when they're in the chat room, they're not going to know you're delayed by 5-10 seconds anyways, so I don't see much downside of it.
Usually,
But,
yeah, exactly. When I respond to people in the chat room, even I don't respond to the instant that I see them post something. I usually glance over every 30 or 60 seconds anyway. So it's going to be, my response to them is going to be delayed anyway, right?
Right.
So,
yep.
like I said, I think I can lower the delay if I wanted to, but right now I don't see a particular need for that. So let's jump into the show, shall we? So we start every show, by the way, with a "What are you playing?" segment, so we can take a little time to talk about any new games that we've been playing. I have been playing 2 games. I've been replaying Alan Wake, which is a fantastic survival horror game. Have you ever played Alan Wake, Free?
No, but I heard it got great reviews. That's one of those that's like I skipped over, but then everybody's chewing me out for not having played it.
Oh, you missed the whole thing. It was $4. You could get the game, the DLC content, and the quote unquote sequel for $4 last weekend, I think.
Now, I have been watching you play Company of Heroes quite
Yes.
often. What do you think of that?
Now, yeah, I've been playing Company of Heroes 2. I was streaming that on Wednesday, and I've actually got a little bit of footage of that here. And it is very interesting because I know you play StarCraft, you play a lot of RTSs. This has
Right.
a very intriguing system in it that's different from pretty much any other RTS. They have this weather system because it takes place on the Eastern Front of World War II as opposed to the first game, which was all about the Western Front. So you've got the Russians versus the Germans, but on any map that's considered a snow map by the game, what happens, and I'll see if I can find one, if I can, kind of go through here and find an example, is every couple of minutes, it seems random. It's like every 5 or 10 minutes on a random timer, there's a blizzard that appears, and a couple of different things happen when the blizzard appears. Line of sight goes way down. Much, much harder to see. And you'll notice that the line of sight in this game is a dynamic line of sight. If you're on one side of the building, you cannot see something on the other side of the building, even if your line of sight range is usually long enough. So you can set up proper ambushes and things. That's very different from Company of Heroes 1. But like I said about the blizzard, line of sight goes down, and people start to freeze to death if they're not in a building, in cover, or in a half track, or next to a fire pit. So the advantage is you want to try and plan, okay, here's where I'm going to be setting up my defenses, and a blizzard's probably coming soon, so I want to have my engineers build these fire pits near my defensive works, or just put them in cover. Now, what happens when that takes place is because the line of sight goes way down, and because moving through the open slowly freezes your units and starts giving them damage over time, oh, here we go. So this is an example. You got a big blizzard here. You can't. It makes it a little harder to see things, but also the line of sight goes way down. You can see a fire right there as well on the main screen. So one of the things this does, it introduces a pause into the action. It's sort of like suddenly the game, everybody sort of pulls back a little bit, holds their breath, or if you have a half track, you might be using it to try to go way out to the end of the map and sneak attack during the blizzard when your opponent doesn't have the capability to quickly get there unless they have also prepared for it and have a half track of their own to capture those outer territories. So it's a really interesting concept. I mean, can you imagine StarCraft when there's so much fog over the screen you can't really see anything and your units are penalized for being in the open?
Is this on every map, though? Like, no matter what, it's in the game? Or...
There are summer maps as well as winter maps.
Okay. So on summer maps, there's not any, like...
There's no weather at all on summer maps.
Okay, I was going to say, like, they don't have to have water or they dehydrate.
That would be interesting. And it lasts for about 2 to 3 minutes. That also seems to be a random. And it does give you, like, a 60-second warning. Hey, blizzard incoming. so you can move your units to the right place. As you can see, my units there are huddled around that fire, keeping them warm, or inside the building, and the enemy couldn't really charge at me because, well, I'll restate that. It's a long-term issue if you're exposed to the cold for about 60 seconds after that point, maybe 40 seconds after that point, then your units start to take damage over time. All in all, you'd have to be out in the exposed, cold weather of the blizzard for probably 2 minutes straight for your unit to go from 100% to 0. First, you have to wait for them to actually start taking damage, and then you have to wait for them to freeze to death. But it's still not a good thing to go into. But I think I like it. I was very worried at first, but it changes the pacing of an RTS. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I played Company of Heroes, the original one, and I was a big British player and paratroopers and all that. But,
oh yeah,
the cheap guys, right? So, but I quite enjoyed it. I don't know, something about it. It just didn't seem to have that competitive factor. I think because it felt so slow. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping, in my own opinion, I'm hoping that Company of Heroes 2 is a bit faster paced as far as combat's concerned.
Ooh, there is something else on the winter maps that is really interesting. It's not featured on this map, so I didn't think about it until now. The water will freeze over, and you can actually drive a tank across it. The light tanks, will slowly crack the ice, and if you have tank after tank driving over the same section of water, it'll get weaker and weaker, and your tank might fall in. So there's this 2v2 map where there's sort of a big lake/river in the middle of the map, and it's a really convenient place to charge across and try. It's because there's a thin spot you can charge across to try and take. But if they have artillery, and they fire that artillery as your Tiger tank's trying to cross the water, that's a problem. And the blizzard will refreeze the lake after the fact. So that can offer some really interesting things can happen. And I think that's what the game offered more than anything else. I agree with you, but from a competitive standpoint, it's nowhere compared to League of Legends or StarCraft 2. But it does have that, crazy stuff can happen, which makes it more entertaining from a spectator point of view. In StarCraft 2, it's hard to surprise the audience with something they haven't seen before, unless it's some brand new meta tactic that nobody's ever seen. But there are situations when you're playing Company of Heroes where you're just like, I can't believe that tank's gonna get away! You have those in League of Legends too, and it's very cool.
Yeah. Now, my last complaint is, what's with the UI, Bridger? Why does it have to take so much of your screen up?
You got me.
Could they not make it where you could just shrink a little bit, or maybe make some of it transparent? And what's with that thing in the middle? It just takes up a huge chunk of your screen. I don't know. That would be my biggest quirk. But then again, what does that really have to do with the gameplay? So
yeah,
we'll see.
All right, I'm officially turning off the Justin TV stream just to make sure my internet isn't going oh God, no. Okay, just want to make sure it's as high quality as possible. So switching over to the YouTube one completely, and we'll continue on. So what have you been playing lately?
For me, it's actually been building a new computer and League of Legends. So the funny thing is, so I built this nice, fancy new computer, and the first things I go and download is League of Legends and Feed the Beast Minecraft. So yeah, a little ironic there, but I actually did it because I needed an upgrade anyway, and all this new hardware came out, the 700 series NVIDIA cards and the Haswell processors and such. So I went ahead and took the dive, and it's actually what I'm running on right now, and it's a screamer. It works really well. But yeah, right now I'm just playing League of Legends. I'm looking forward probably the most to Battlefield 4 in the near future, the betas that are promised to be coming out. But nothing too big at the moment. Of course, all the other TL guys, for all of you listening, Rift is apparently free to play, and that's what everybody is jumping into right now. If it's not League of Legends or if it's not Marvel Heroes, have you tried that one out, Bridger?
I haven't. I actually thought it was going to be sort of a third-person beat 'em up. Where you almost like the Batman Arkham City style controls, where you do counters and attack. And then I saw Ors was streaming it, Ors from Team Legacy, and it was like a Diablo clone, and I'm like, what? That doesn't. I'm confused. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to try it out. I've been playing Alan Wake and Company of Heroes too much, and I even looked at like somebody else was like, "What do you think of War Game? Airland Battle?" And I started to look into it. and I was like, this looks like it could be a good game. I should read some. No, no, turn away. I don't have the time for this. I can. Too many good stuff going on. So.
Yeah.
I'm showing some footage here from the League of Legends in-house last night, since you were talking about League of Legends. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. And we had really good even teams, too. That's the most important part. But, yeah, Marvel Heroes, you got Rift. That's everybody's playing right now. And then, of course, well, you could argue that Dota 2 is out there and such. But the thing is, we're right at the heels of E3. So, everybody's really looking forward to these games that are coming out in the near future. And we're just kind of sitting on these classics that I call them classics. Maybe that's not the right term for League of Legends or something, but these games that we're kind of sitting on right now. So besides that, I mean, have you looked into E3 at all, Bridger? At like any of the games coming out?
I haven't. I haven't looked at any of the news specifically for E3
myself. All right. Well, so I made a list, and this is the freelancer list of games that I think are actually worth looking forward to this next week. So I'm going to go run through them real quick, okay?
Okay.
You got, of course, the big ones. If you're a big MMO player, you got WildStar, Elder Scrolls Online, and then there's a bunch of other smaller MMOs that are coming out as well. But you also have Battlefield 4 making a big showing. You have, if you're a Call of Duty fan, there's likely going to be a Modern Warfare there. There's going to be Call of Duty Ghosts, which, I mean, you guys know how the Call of Duty franchise works. You have the company that makes the Modern Warfare games, and then you have, I think it's Treyarch or something, right? That makes the other Call of Duty games. So both of those will likely be at the show to some extent. We know that Ghost is going to be there. But the biggest thing I'm excited for, everybody should be excited for, is the new Smash Brothers.
They haven't talked much about that at all, have they?
No, it's been hush-hush up until now, but they've already confirmed it's going to be on the next at E3, and they're going to show it off. I mean, the thing is, though, I don't own a Wii U, so I can't get too excited about it, but it's still cool to see, how far it's come or how it's changed. A lot of people, I was a big Brawl player, Melee player, all the way back to the original.
They're so different from normal fighting games, and it's great. I love the whole concept of just like, you have to knock your opponent off. If you can't do it, if he's still there, if he dodges all your stuff, it doesn't matter if you keep hitting him with low power attacks. He won't just die from that. It's so cool.
So you have that, which is exciting. For me, it's more nostalgic. Then you have an open world game called Watch Dogs, which a lot of people are talking about. It's sort of like a 1980s setting. Kind of almost reminds me of like Sherlock Holmes in a way, but it's set like Grand Theft Auto is, or Saints Row.
I thought this was the one with all the super technology. Like the guy has like a super PDA that lets him see.
Right, but have you seen the images of him though, and like the styling of the characters?
Oh, okay.
And stuff?
So the styling is 1980s, but it takes place in the theoretical near future.
All right, here's an example, Bridger. One of the images I saw of the main character, he had a fedora on.
Fedoras never go out of style, my friend. It depends on who's wearing them. If Harrison Ford is wearing them, it's fine.
Okay, well, he had a fedora on, so that's where my reference came from. But, okay, so aside from Watch Dogs, which actually I do think, honestly, it's going to be a great game.
I did see a trailer. It looks really cool.
You have the new two Final Fantasies. I don't know how big of a Final Fantasy fan you are, but you have the one for PS4, which obviously PS4 is going to be there. They're going to make their big announcement. But then they also have confirmed there's a Final Fantasy that's going to be announced. We don't know to what extent, but I'd be happy with just a cinematic. So I'm looking forward to that. And then they're also, though it's already been announced, you have for the PS3 Lightning Returns also being showcased there, which is a sort of an ongoing story continuation of Final Fantasy 13. But you have, let me say this just very unbiasedly. Xbox One.
I think you mean the X-Bone.
Yeah, you have the Xbox. There's a lot of controversy about the Xbox, and we'll talk about that a
Yeah,
little later.
are they going to be revealing anything new? I mean, they had the big reveal not too long ago, and I've seen more information trickling out on Penny Arcade Report and Rock Paper
Well,
Shotgun.
we know this. First off, EA, like all E3s, EA is going to have a huge, probably the biggest. Them and Ubisoft will probably have the biggest showings there. And EA recently in the press has been very, very, we're in bed with Xbox, type news. So, but in all seriousness, you'll probably see a lot of new things about Xbox One. They're probably going to clarify a lot of these rumors and things that people are exaggerating on the internet. I'm not going to bash it. I've never owned an Xbox 360. I was always a PlayStation guy, but it should have some decent things coming out because along with the Xbox, you're likely going to have a lot of really great titles that we've known, Xbox 360 to have. So, but besides that, Rome 2 makes another showing.
Oh, yeah.
So
Still too far away, though. What is it, October?
Right.
I
Yeah,
think.
it's early October along with Battlefield 4. So it sounds pretty far, but October.
It's
It's
okay,
closer
because
than
the
you
Civ
think.
5 expansion's coming out in July. That might hold me over in my strategy game. I mean, that plus Company of Heroes
So
2.
so what's the Civ 5 expansion that you're speaking
The
of?
Brave New World.
Is that really what it's called?
That's what it's called. Hang
Is it
on.
like an Indian themed one or
Hang
something?
on. Hang on. It might not be Brave New World.
Okay. But
Civ-
while you're getting that, just to throw this
Nope.
in for
It is.
for the laughs, there's also a new Pokemon series being announced. So you're gonna the sad part is us older gamers, we're rolling our eyes and stuff, but those Pokemon stands for the I think it's like the 3DS or something. Are probably going to be among the most popular stands there. So you
Yeah.
can't really trash talk it too much. But yeah, I'm excited. I think the biggest thing is for me the PlayStation 4 because you're actually going to be able to see what it looks like, and they're going to confirm a lot of things with it. And as far as if you're kind of a tech geek, the 4K announcements. Do you know all about the 4K resolution and what they're pushing out with that?
Is this from the hardware manufacturers?
All right, so you have the big thing in TVs and monitors, and for the most part, is 1080p, right?
That's the standard.
That's the de facto, HD. Well, ever since then, tablets and phones, for the most part, have been moving past that to what they call a Retina display. And the idea of a Retina display is that even if you were to put it right up against your face, you would not be able to see the pixels on the screen. It's so dense that these phones and tablets are discernibly to your eye, you can't see the difference in pixelation. So, okay, that's great on a small screen, but for the longest time, they weren't able to put that out on, let's say, a 30-inch monitor or a 60-inch, HD TV. So these new 4K displays, and they're already out. You can get them for $10,000, $15,000, no big deal. But they're now becoming sort of a big thing, and the PlayStation 4 recently confirmed that they will have an output for the 4K displays, and that was kind of like their kick in the rear, to the Xbox One, who doesn't have that. So the another big thing for the tech geeks out there is they're going to be talking a lot about it, and we will likely hear that certain games are going to support this. So for people that buy games and they have the 65-inch screens or they have just loads of expendable income, and they're going to buy these 4K televisions, they will be able to look forward to these games that will look clearly clearer and high def than typical 1080p games. So that's not a big deal for most people, but it's still a big push in technology, and I'm looking forward to that.
So, speaking of the big push in technology, there is a lot of stuff, as you pointed out, talking about at E3, but we're on the cusp of the next big console thing. I mean, we didn't have a show right after the Xbox One was announced, which, can we just sit in agreement and then move on about how terrible that name is?
Xbox One. I mean, I don't know. I mean, wasn't it the rumor for the longest time, the Xbox Infinity or something like that?
Yeah.
And then ironically, the name is actually Xbox One. Something tells me in those offices, they were like, we really got to just, show these guys, show Reddit what's going on. And, they just changed it last minute. No, on a serious note, Xbox One, yeah, it's just like they couldn't really think of anything. But what else are they gonna call it? I mean, it's not so much the name that everybody's talking about right now. It's the number of questionable items that are associated with it. Um, I mean, what do you think's the biggest thing that you hear about it now, being completely unbiased?
That's a good question. And just before we go on, I'm just going to be throwing some of my footage up here of the games that I've been playing recently while we talk, because we don't have any footage of the Xbox One to talk about. We usually, if we're talking about a specific game, we like to put some footage up there for you. But Total Biscuit style, we're just putting up some footage of the random things that we've been playing recently, so that you guys can have something to watch while we're talking about this. So this is me playing Alan Wake a little bit here.
If TB could put completely irrelevant footage while he talks, we can, right?
That's right. Talking about GameStop and the death of the second tier market while he plays Warframe. That's clearly, those link really well together. So there is a lot of stuff that people are very upset about. I am not as upset about the whole third party market and trading in games and things like that, because I played consoles very sparsely since I started to become a really big PC gamer. And so I haven't had a lot to trade in. I don't think I've walked into a GameStop in forever. The games that I bought are just sitting on the shelf. There's like 12 of them. So that doesn't affect me. And the model that I use the most right now, which is Steam, also doesn't allow me to sell it on a secondary market. And so I'm not offended. That doesn't, I'm like, okay, I'm already using the model that people are all complaining about. But from the same point of view, I understand when people say, I bought this thing, I should be able to sell it and get some of my money back. If I buy a car, then I should be able to sell that car to somebody else and get some of my money back. The problem with that argument, as awesome as it sounds and as correct as it sounds, is that a car loses value over time. Because materially, it breaks down. The engine gets worse. Data doesn't. Data doesn't. You're selling them the disc, which isn't exact, unless the disc actually has scratches on it, it can't be a used thing, right? If it doesn't break down over time.
I gotta interject here, Bridger. Could you not argue that maybe the power supply, for example, or the hard drive, which does have a disk and does get worn over time, could you not argue that those are essentially the metaphorical equivalent of an engine, and they do wear out over time, and eventually they will die?
I think you can sell the Xbox itself on the third-party market. I just don't think that the game, unless I misunderstood. Have you heard that you're not allowed to sell the game system either as a used game system?
I don't know. I was under the impression, and I mean, we're going to learn about it all, this coming week, but that you essentially register your Xbox to your account. And that's the way that Xbox 360 works, where if you, let's say get banned, your console is banned. It happens. It famously happens in Call of Duty and stuff, where when somebody gets banned, it's not like I could just go home and say, okay, well, I'm done with Call of Duty, I'm done with Xbox, and give my Xbox to somebody else. Your Xbox was attached to your account, and therefore, when they ban you, it bans your Xbox too, and you can't just resell it. So somewhere along the way, it is attached. It's not just something that you can freely sell.
You might be right on that, and that would be an issue for me. Like, for example, I buy an Xbox One, and I start playing it and determine that the games that are on it are no good, or it doesn't work with my TV, or maybe I just don't have enough money to support the habit anymore. I lose my job. I want to try and sell some stuff to make it until I can get a new job. I can't sell my Xbox? You kidding me? I paid $400 for this thing, and it's now valueless to everyone in the world except me, this piece of hardware. That could be a problem for me. And the other thing that people are really upset about, and I think that makes more sense to me, and that would affect me the most, would be the whole always on, always connected thing, where it has to call home every 24 hours. Otherwise, your games can't be played. That is a crappy system to say, okay, so my internet goes out, then I can't play games, or like I said, lose my job and try and save money, I get rid of the internet. For me, I would never do that. That would be literally the last thing that goes. But if it happened, I would like to maybe take comfort in the fact that all this money that I spent before can still entertain me, even if I don't have the internet. And the concept that it would just immediately stop working is fairly alien and very annoying. I mean, Steam even has an offline mode that once you've played the game once, you can always play it in offline mode for... There's no 24-hour check-in. You just go into offline mode, take it into the woods, and still play your game. So that's a problem for me.
Yeah, the online offline thing, I don't think that's as much as a big deal as our next point, regarding the camera and such. But I mean, how much of America, let's say, that would normally play console games, do you think is connected to the internet? I would say most are. I mean, I understand people that want to raise up arms and say, oh, I got to have internet connection and stuff. But who honestly doesn't have an internet connection hooked up to their console these days? I just don't see it being that big of a deal, except for those that are trying to make it a big deal, and that's just my opinion. Now, the other points we're going to be going into, yeah, definitely. But in this day and age, it's so easy to get internet in any circumstance. I mean, even for somebody that's lost their job. I mean,
now wait a minute. You having internet is one side of the equation, but remember, Microsoft has to have internet too in order for this whole thing to work. So what about when Christmas Day, the
servers go down.
300,000 new people get Xbox Ones and all try to connect them and authenticate at the same time, essentially. The servers go down. Or what if some hacker guys DDoS the servers, or a big Halo or Call of Duty launches and it overloads the servers? I mean, if Microsoft never has that problem, I will be very surprised.
It's like, have we learned anything from SimCity's launch, right?
Right. Exactly.
So, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Now, if they never have that problem, then obviously it's not a concern, but I'm not convinced. I mean, PlayStation that PlayStation Plus network went down for 24 days. That is a long time. And if Microsoft goes down for 24 days and people can't play at all, that is a major problem. I don't think it's ever going to get that bad, but it's something to concern yourself with. Now, what about the privacy concerns? Because there's a microphone always on in whatever room it's in order to make sure that when you say, Xbox, turn on, it'll turn on for you.
Well, the Xbox Kinect already has that right now, and ironically, during the announcement of Xbox One, if you were watching the live feed on your Xbox 360 and you had a Kinect set up, the announcer said Xbox so loud that he was shutting off people's Xboxes.
Oh, because that's right. He said Xbox off to show people, hey, look, this is how this works. And so people are watching, and he says Xbox off, and they're like, you jerk, what did you do that for?
Immediately, there was forum threads, and you can go to IGN or any of your favorite sites. It was a hilarious moment, a couple weeks ago. Wow. They just in hordes went to the forums and complained that their Xbox keeps shutting off because he didn't do it just one time. He did it a couple of times.
Now,
and when he did it, their Xbox randomly shuts off. They're like, man, gotta hurry up and get it back. I'm watching, I'm excited. And then he does it again and it shuts off again. Oh, they were just livid. But yeah, so the biggest worry I have about the camera, not so much the microphone, but the camera, is I understand that, it's you have settings. A lot of people like to say, oh, they can log in whenever and such, but apparently there are settings that you can disable or enable that, keeps some privacy. But what's to stop somebody knowing that your internet is connected 24/7? What's to stop, let's say, the average household? The mom, there's a kid that wants the Xbox One. Okay, great. So the mom goes to Christmas and buys an Xbox One. Well, then she finds out from the Walmart employee, oh, well, he needs to be connected to the internet. You need to buy a router. So she buys, okay, no big deal, buys a little $30 router, hooks it up, gets the Comcast or whatever to hook it up for her. No protection on their internet, on their router, okay? Now, what's to stop and knowing that millions of kids across the U.S. will be doing this from a hacker just logging into their router, accessing the webcam, and taking advantage of it. You know,
Ooh. We
and
gotta hope they have security precautions in place that don't have any vulnerabilities. That's gonna be a problem.
And I think that coming up in E3, they're going to be, they should address that because that's one of the biggest things that you're going to see on the internet right now, because of the fact not so much that the Xbox doesn't have its own internal security, but that the always online feature is something that you figure retailers will also be trying to upsell the whole package, with the router and stuff, but they really don't know how to set up all the security. So that's just something that I want to see in E3, and it is something to be worried about. I think everybody should be worried about it.
Yeah. Now, somebody in the chat here, JRW Space, has pointed out that without an offline mode, you can't take the Xbox One with you on deployment. So, for example, soldiers overseas, I'm guessing that probably quite a few of them in their off time have access to things like Xbox to play.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, we have soldiers in Team Legacy's community, and they do have public internet access that is not attached to the military's internet, and they will on those special bases, and there are certain bases that have that. A lot of bases have that. They will be able to set up, an internet connection, like they do now. A lot of soldiers play Call of Duty. A lot of them. So yeah, that is a concern. But if you're not stationed on one of those bases, one of the bigger bases across these, that's going to be a problem. Sounds like you're going to be buying Final Fantasy in the near future.
No. All right. So let's talk about an interesting point that has been made is PS4 is probably going to be following similar suit in preventing the third-party market trading and sort of requiring always-on connections. They have done a good job of not saying that outright so that Microsoft takes the brunt of all feedback here. But it seems likely that they will do a very similar thing. If that's the case, what advantages do consoles have over computers now? Because in the past, that's been two of their biggest advantages, is the third-party market. You could trade games you didn't like to get some of your money back, and the fact that you didn't need an internet connection, you didn't need a stable internet connection or anything like that, you didn't need to know how to do anything. So what kind of advantages do consoles have over PCs these days?
Well, the major one, and all developers will tell you this, is imagine yourself as a development company for any game, and it's very easy to know exactly the hardware configuration of millions of your potential customers and design for them as far as development costs are concerned than it is to develop for, let's say, a PC where there are limitless configurations, available, not including everything that's set up as far as their OS and, what they have on Windows, drivers, all sorts of other stuff. So it's very enticing for startups, gaming company and development companies to develop for consoles for the reason that they can spec it around specifically one type of hardware config and not have to worry about the rest. That's always going to be the big advantage of consoles, always. Now, it limits things, and the problem with this is where you get a lot of the porting, hatred on the internet, is that when a company does that, they develop a game, for a console, for Xbox, 360, and then they have to tweak some coding and stuff, and then they run it on PS3. Is that when they go to try to bring it to PC, they run into, a lot of hurdles. They either have to dumb down the game so that most hardware configurations can play it, or they spend a lot of money and a lot of time tweaking it so that higher-end PCs can try to run it on higher settings. But, I mean, that's your big advantage. Imagine yourself as, running a business. It's very easy for your coders to code for this graphics card, this processor, this architecture, and be done with it.
Well, not only that, but in the past, we've seen a sort of pattern since the PS2, Xbox One days, when the Xbox 360 and the PS3 were sort of announced. When those were announced and the games that came out in like the second generation of games, their visual quality was at least as good as, if not better than, pretty much even the highest end PCs at the time, specifically because of what you're talking about, the optimization capability of being able to make something for a very specific platform. But a lot of the stuff that they've shown us so far with the Xbox One is not as impressive as some of the stuff that we can see on the PC today with like the CryEngine 3.
Well, don't tell EA that. EA actually made a press announcement that they said that the Xbox One was ahead of today's and in the near future PC technology, and that because of that, the newer generation consoles will sort of take back the crown as far as pushing the limits of gaming, as they worded it. So they, of course, this is EA, but they seem to think that these new consoles coming out, the Xbox One and the PS4, are going to set the new bar for how good and how well a game will play, and as far as as the way it looks. I think most people would heavily disagree with that. The advantage of PCs, though, is that let's look 2 years from now. Xbox One is not. I mean, you're going to have so many new things in a PC. You're going to have Broadwell processors. You're going to have likely 800 series cards, and they're going to blow away what consoles do. And it's just a never-ending vicious cycle, But I don't know. We'll see. I know there's a lot of console fanboys right now that are probably up in arms saying, "Oh, consoles are great for this and that." But yeah.
So let's take a look at the next piece that we have here. What is going to change? Like, are there going to be new things that are possible with the new generation of consoles that weren't possible now? I mean, we've already got the Kinect. We've already got whatever the new version of PlayStation Move is. We haven't heard anything different, really, for that. About the only thing that has really new capability is the Wii U, with the fact that you have a controller with its own separate screen. But aside from that, is there anything else that's really going to change in terms of the kinds of games that can be made in the future because of this hardware shift?
Well, one thing consoles is motion sensing. You're not going to see a PC gamer getting out of their seat to dance or pretend to hold a gun. So that's something that consoles always have. But as far as pushing technology or anything like that, I don't see anything visibly. But then again, PS4, which depending on who you ask, PS4 really brought a lot of new things. PS3 really brought a lot of new things when it came out. So I think we're going to see something fancy from the PS4 when it comes out. But not really, nothing I see. What about you?
Well, I don't see anything specific. Now, here's a question, because the only new thing, really new thing that I can see on the future is the Oculus Rift. Is that going to be supported by consoles and console games, do you think?
I don't know. The Oculus Rift is... I don't know what's going to support the Oculus Rift. For those of you that aren't sure what the Oculus Rift is, it's kind of like a VR thing, right, Bridger? From what I'm understanding.
Let me pull up this demo so you can see. The guy is wearing the Oculus Rift there, and it's a headset that has two screens in it, one for each eye, and because it has two screens in it, it can do three-dimensional, 3D images for you. And it allows you to move your view by moving your head. So you can look at different things. That's sort of an idea of what it might sort of look like to the person playing it. However, you have to imagine it looks a lot better to the person actually playing the game than what we have here. You have to imagine that this is a view taking up your entire field of view, essentially, so that everything looks correct. And there are various different ways in which you can actually control it. So you can see the cursor in front of him is not being controlled by his head. Instead, the cursor's still being controlled by his mouse. His head is controlling where he looks, so you can look to one direction when you're not actually firing in that direction, which I don't know how much advantageous that will be. Maybe certain games it will be better than others. In this section of the video, I remember he was telling about how it really looks like those pieces of concrete are flying up at his face, and that was very impressive to him. I think you can do a better 3D technology when you have something this close to your eyes. And he's doing a little calibration there to make the 3D effect better, but that's just an example. If you want to watch the rest of this video, they do go through a lot of it and how they test it out. Team Fortress 2 actually does support this prototype already. It's called Testing the Oculus Rift Development Kit. It's on the Tested channel, youtube.com/tested. So definitely check that out if you are interested.
I think when it comes to a lot of this extra technology, though, we're going to run into the same problem as we did with 3D monitors and such. I think if you were to ask gamers out there, if you were to ask our audience right now in chat, what they think of a 3D monitor, I'm sure the majority of them love the idea, but they just don't have the extra cash to put towards something like that, or a 3D TV. I mean, you got to be in that situation where you can just blow money to get those sort of things. Mm-hmm. And I think the mass majority would say, sure, I would love to have a 3D monitor, and I would love to play 3D games, even if I had to wear light glasses and stuff. But the cost prohibits the technology from taking off. And what I worry about, and I think we're already seeing it with the Oculus Rift, is sure, it's a great piece of technology, and when it gets finished, I'm sure it's going to be awesome, and everybody will talk about how neat it looks and stuff. But it's still going to fall down that path of death because nobody's able to afford it.
I think I disagree. I think that it will be so transcendent in terms of an immersion factor of like putting you in the game so well that it will sort of beat that normal hump where you have nobody picking it up because nothing supports it and nothing supports it because nobody's using it. If they hit a $200 price point or less for this, I can see it being adopted by a good 25 to 30% of the gaming population and then growing over time.
I see it being adopted by flight sims. Like we had somebody, Shiv, in chat said Star Citizen will support it. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big deal because you can actually see yourself, looking at the left and right sides of the cockpit, etc. It would be really neat, like if in Battlefield 4 when you're flying jets, if you could do it for the same reason, and obviously other things like that. But I mean, have they given any rough estimate on how much a Oculus Rift would cost? Have you heard any numbers?
Hang on a second. The only number I've ever heard was the Kickstarter number. They said that there was a certain threshold when you're kickstarting it to get a prototype kit. There's an unassembled Rift prototype kit for $275 was what they sold on the Kickstarter.
Well, that is considerably lower than I thought, but that is a Kickstarter, thing as well. So I don't know. But what I'm trying to say, though, Bridger, is that 3D monitors were, about 4 or 3 years ago, the big thing, where you buy, a special monitor and you wear glasses and suddenly the bullets are, you feel like you're more involved in the game and such. TVs were the same way. They came out and such, but in the end, I mean, heck, even when we look at our own stats and stuff, or when you look at Steam stats, they have an elaborate stat system you can pull up of all the gamers out there. Not many people are running 3D setups because it's just, as far as the cost versus what it does, it doesn't have that much of an impact. But if Oculus Rift changes that, I mean, that'll be great. I just don't see somebody replacing monitors with the Oculus Rift, because if I have to do work on an Excel sheet, I'm not going to be wearing my Oculus Rift to do that. And when it comes down to somebody buying a new PC, statistically, the biggest thing they are likely to spend less money on, or that they will compromise, is their monitors. They will typically spend quite a bit of money on their graphics card and then the processor and stuff, and usually the monitor is towards the end of the list. And I think the Oculus Rift fits in that category. When they get done building their PC and upgrading and stuff, suddenly that Oculus Rift that they plan on getting, probably is going to be put aside for other things.
I guess it really depends how much it transforms the experience, because I never, even when thinking about the 3D glasses and things, I never actually get to try it at any one of the PAXs. But no, actually, you know what? I did try it at one of the PAXs. We played. There was a Jurassic Park or some kind of dinosaur game, and it was pretty impressive. But it wasn't something that I thought, I need to go and spend money on this when I played it. I thought that's kind of cool, but I don't think I need this. But when I think about the Oculus Rift and the capabilities it could have, I think to myself, I need this. Like this, if this is $200, I'm going to save up for a couple of months if it takes that and buy it, because after that, I'll have it. It's a sort of a one-time purchase that if it transforms the experience that much, it might be worth it. It really comes down to whether it does do that or not. If the people who try it go out and say to everybody around them, this is amazing, this changes the way you play games, and it adds so much to the experience you will not understand until you play it, then it's going to start selling more. And those people, if those keep giving profit, it's going to just, skyrocket, steamroll itself. Now, Vin, in Team Legacy, actually says he has a development kit. And he says it looks amazing, but still low resolution. The consumer model is going to have a higher resolution when they actually get it finished. So that's very interesting. He's actually says it looks really good. So I would simply ask him. He says it's impossible to navigate Windows when you have the Rift. Now, Vin, if we get to your comment here again, does it feel like it transforms the experience? Would you spend $200, assuming you didn't have it right now and it was just, whatever? Would you spend $200 on it to play that experience if you had it? I would be interested to hear his response to that. So what about you, Freelancer? Assuming it's not something that everybody says you have to have, but a lot of people give it positive reviews and it's $200, $250. Do you think you're going to be buying one?
I think there's two demographics they got to appease to, and they're not going to ever appease to the second. The first demographic is those who appreciate the immersion, and the experience of the game, and people who like playing Heavy Rain on the PS3. No, in all seriousness, I don't think it's going to appease too well to the more competitive crowd, or let's say the shooter crowd, as much as they show off Team Fortress 2. I think that was targeted intentionally, because if you watch TF2, he was all over the place. I mean, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have to force an entire generation of gamers to adapt to this whole head movement thing, and then you're going to have neck problems. And I just think we're all so used to a mouse and using the mouse to look around and then point and click and shoot, that trying to use this thing that also changes your view and then you mix it with your mouse, I don't see it being picked up by any competitive venue at all. And that's my biggest worry. I mean, obviously I hope the opposite, because it looks really cool and I think it's revolutionary, but I don't see any competitive player picking it up, because any game that will allow you to use a mouse and a regular monitor, that's what those more serious gamers are going to use, because they're used to it and it's universal. If I get super used to a Oculus Rift, okay, and I get really good at a game with an Oculus Rift, I'm not saying you can't do that. Let's say you do. And then I decide to enter a tournament, or I decide to let's say go to my friend's house. In all of those scenarios, I'm completely removing myself from what I'm used to, and then going there. And I doubt any esports scene, at least what we're seeing in the future, or when the Oculus Rift announces or releases, will allow you to use an Oculus Rift. I just don't see it. And if it does work the opposite, great. But I think it's going to come down to what people are comfortable with. And as much as we would like to use controllers for the PC, and some players do, most players are used to the keyboard and mouse, and they would much prefer to use that.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting question. If the Oculus Rift takes off at least to some degree, and you have, let's say 25-30% of the population using it, let's talk about games like the flight sims, like, I don't know, War Thunder, World of Warplanes, those kinds of things where you're doing combat flight sims where, if you ask me, the Oculus Rift would be invaluable. It would actually improve your performance significantly to be able to simply look around with your head, because most people use either a mouse or a joystick to control the actual control of the aircraft, and you need essentially a third joystick of some kind, a third input to control your view, because oftentimes you want to follow something or look behind you or look above you, and using a hat control on the joystick just falls so short of what I want it to be. And I imagine in those situations it would be way more useful than not having it. So it seems to me there could be a controversy in the future of, if World of Warplanes or any of these kind of flight sim combat games where I theoretically see it becoming a really valuable tool.
Well,
some people have it and some don't.
You're limited by other things too, like the gameplay mechanics. You're talking about a shooter, which it would work really well, because generally in a flight sim / shooter like that, generally you're flying a plane in one direction. If you're going to turn it, it has a moment of time, where you have to bank and turn, and it's very smooth and gradual. And you could be doing dogfighting and it can be a little faster, but it doesn't compare to in Counter-Strike rushing across the gap, jumping around, doing a 360 and trying to headshot somebody, all in less than half a second. I mean, can you imagine wearing an Oculus Rift and playing a scout in Team Fortress 2?
Well,
I mean,
you can wear an Oculus Rift simply for the immersion and not move your head at all. I think you can actually turn off the head controls.
Imagine watching a player, like actually watching somebody with the Oculus Rift on, try to play a scout competitively in Team Fortress 2. Just imagine that.
You mean using the head tracking to actually control the cursor?
I'm talking about doing the double jumping and whipping around corners and trying to kill people and just, or rocket jumping. I mean...
Well, I don't think you'd have a problem at all using it, unless in a first-person shooter environment, unless you...
jumping with the Oculus Rift?
You don't have to move... You don't have to tie your... view only to the headpiece. That's what I'm trying to say. The video I was showing you before, there's multiple control schemes to where your mouse still controls your view mostly, but you can also control some of your view with your head. But you can use it as nothing but a monitor that creates an immersive 3D experience if you wanted to, and leave all the controls to normal, is what I'm saying. That, I think, is how most people would use it.
I guess my thing is I have to see it to believe it. And from what I've seen so far, notice in that video, they played a heavy, intentionally. Because a heavy doesn't move fast. It doesn't do a lot of things quick. And even playing a heavy, he had a hard time moving around. Now, you would assume that somebody playing for a while would get used to it and get better with it. But I guess the big thing is, we're talking about, you're saying you'll be able to rocket jump, we're using Team Fortress 2 as an example and stuff. Okay, then that's fine, but I guess I would have to see it in action, and I think most gamers, at least any respectable gamer, is going to have to see somebody reputable actually use that competitively before they go out and spend $300-400 on it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So, let's see, what else do we have here? What about the Steam box? The concept of having a console-ish type unit, which comes with basically just Steam on it. You boot it up, you turn it on, it's plugged into your TV, and it's got Steam Big Box mode right there. You can buy games, and you can open up games and play it. Do you think something like that? Is there room in the market, the console market, of like plug this thing into your TV and it works, for something like a Steam box?
It depends on the cost. It really does, because other companies have tried this, and none of them succeeded. So, aside from the Steam box, in that same genre, you have. I know I'm going to massacre the pronunciation, but you have like the Ouya, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah.
And other things, which is you have other companies already out that try to stream you games. They have boxes where you can buy and hook up to your TV that doesn't have a single game on it.
On Live is the big one that made waves a couple of years ago.
And none of them were successful. I mean, they were innovative, but they never sold well, and a lot of those companies are already gone. On Live is just one of, I think, 4 or so that, when they first came out. Now, even like for example, even Netflix and stuff, approached the idea, and being as big as Netflix was trying to stream gaming, it just wouldn't work. Steam is different in the respect that I believe you're going to be able to download these games and play them on the go.
Hmm.
And depending on the cost and depending on just what games you can play, I think it's a great idea. They're trying to make it where, for the most part, your indie games, your smaller ones, incredible games like, you were playing recently, Roos and stuff,
Hmm.
you'll be able to play those across the TV and stuff. But it really depends on the catalog, I think, is what it comes down to. I think it's a great idea. But if gamers are not able to get the games that they normally load up Steam to play, then it won't work. But I'll tell you what will make it work. If you can load Dota 2 on it, then you're laughing, and I'm not a Dota 2 player, but I'm telling you, it would work.
How do
If
you
some,
control that with a console, with an
well, the Steam
Xbox
box,
controller?
you're still going to hook up a keyboard and mouse if you want to.
You
And
could, yeah, but I think the main
I think
market would be.
I think the biggest allure of it for what will really push it for a niche gamer or a group of gamers is being able to basically download Dota 2 or another big competitive game on your Steam box and then use your 65-inch TV to play with the keyboard and mouse, hooked up to the Steam box. I know that people can hook up their TVs to, PCs now, but that's far more convenient than trying to lug your PC over to your TV in the living room. So I see that type of gamer enjoying it, but it really still comes down to the cost. Um, in the end, that's what it's really going to be. How much is it going to cost? How convenient is it going to be to buy? Because if somebody's going to want to buy an Xbox or a PS4, they're not also going to want to spend $300 on a Steam box. I don't think it's going to cost nearly that much, but
I
they're
don't know.
not
It's
going
got
to
to
want.
be a full computer, but I think it's going to be around $300 or so. I think they want it to
I don't know.
play.
I was under the impression the Steam box is more for their indie games and the development titles, and the biggest allure of it is that a average gamer like you or I could almost create our own game and then present it on the Steam box, which is linked to Steam, and that they're going to provide tools to do that.
Well,
So,
I'm looking here. The XI3 is the first, from what I understand, what Valve is doing with this is they're saying they're kind of licensing out the concept of the Steam box and letting hardware manufacturers make their own version of it for all intents and purposes. And the first one that we've heard anything about is the XI3 Piston was the first one. And this one, the most expensive version of it you can get is $1,000. So
well, I digress then. But who's going to drop $1,000 on a Steam box
that's a good question.
when you can't play EA games on it?
Well, you
And
can play
what
some
I mean
EA
is
games.
origin-based games.
Yeah. True. I think the real appeal here is all of the console games that have been ported over to PC. Fantastic games like Arkham Asylum or any of the fighting games that are also on Steam. There's not a terrible lot of them, but there are a few on there. I'm trying to think of any things like Braid is a fantastic game that is played with a controller at best. Monaco is another one that was started on sort of XBLA and now it's on Steam, and it plays really well with a controller. Those games are designed to be played with controllers, and they work really well with controllers. And so you have a large library of games like that. But if you don't want to spend $300 on a 360 or a mic. Maybe you just want to protest Microsoft. The Steam box might be a decent alternative. The problem is, like you said, $1,000 is certainly a lot. At that point, why didn't you just buy an Xbone or a PS4?
Right.
Because we're talking about how good this would be to play ports of games that are already on these other systems that cost less.
But it is kind of like what Google's doing as well, where they're trying to, interweave everybody's experience across your cell phone, then across your console or your TV, and then across your PC. They're trying to make it all completely seamless, which is nice. So if you were playing a game on Steam, let's say some indie game that came out, or who knows, let's say the next Torchlight, and then you decide you're going to go to your friend's house, and you just hop on their Steam box and log in, and you can continue your game. I think that's going to be, for certain crowds, pretty cool. I really do.
The real advantage of this in comparison to the consoles is that they're trying to create a sort of modular interface whereby, you know, you buy it and you play and it says it's guaranteed to play these games really well, and then, you know, a year or two later you're like, okay, it's not playing all the new games at the highest graphics. You can like sort of swap out the motherboard or swap out the graphics portion of it the same way you do with a computer and get the similar thing. So it's sort of like, it's got a computer, it's got computer prices, but it's simpler to use to some degree, theoretically, than a full computer would be in terms of like hooking up your full computer to your TV. But to be honest, I think I really should just get a really long, you know, DVI or VGA cable and, you know, a wireless controller and plug my computer into my TV rather than buy this thing. It's not for us, I don't think.
No, it's not, and not everybody has a, you know, a PC, a gaming PC, you know, and so it is. You're always going to have this type of crowds, and I think the moral of the story of talking about all these consoles and Steam Box is that you're always still going to have that PC enthusiast crowd, because there's just something about being able to tweak your machine and make it yours. And I understand Steam Box can do that to a certain extent, but there's something about being able to tweak it and make it yours that people like. It's just the same as somebody that owns a motorcycle or, you know, tricks out their car, or people like, you know, identity in what they're doing and what they enjoy. PC enthusiasts are no different. So you're not going to scare away the PC crowd as much as EA and other. I think it's EA and Ubisoft said something. This isn't the death of PCs. You know, when they said that, I just rolled my eyes. But it's definitely pushing things to a certain direction. We'll have to see what happens.
All right, I think we covered all the topics I set up to cover tonight. Any other thoughts on like the future of gaming? Is there any trends or shifts that we're missing? I mean, we didn't really mention the Wii U, but I have to say, I took a look at Nintendo Land, a bunch of videos of that, and it actually does look like a ridiculous amount of fun. It looks like a better version of Mario Party.
You know, Nintendo is completely. They're going to have a small little booth, but they decided to not show up to E3 at all, for the most part. So that's interesting in itself. I mean, they're going to have like Pokemon there, and the individual companies will, like, I forget the name of the company that does Smash Brothers. They'll be there, and they'll have a little thing. But Nintendo as a whole has nothing to announce, I guess one could assume, and they're just not going to be there. So I don't know how this will hurt them or help them, but it's worth noting that basically this E3 will be a circle jerk between PS4 and Xbox. So, whereas before you had Nintendo coming in, you know, catering to the families. You know what I mean? So.
All right. So I guess that is it. I kind of want a Wii U just to play that Nintendo Land. I mean, there's just so many cool things you can do by giving somebody a separate screen.
I was one of those guys that bought a Wii to just play Smash Brothers. So I might,
know. Yeah, you know what? We might grab a Wii U to play the new Smash Brothers. I mean, we got a lot of mileage out of that first one.
I say I'm not going to, but I got to see it. This week's going to be the deciding factor there.
All right, so I guess that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, we thank you here from the Team Legacy community. You can join us if you like, teamlegacy.net. We welcome all people coming in and have some friends to play with. We got good people. We have a strict no drama policy. No talking about religion, no talking about politics. It makes it way cooler, no tempers, no passive aggressive. It's fun. That's what we're here for. We're here to play games and have fun, and it's ridiculously fun here at Team Legacy. Jump on the TeamSpeak, say hello, join us in some games, just be friendly.
You forgot the no K-pop part.
Oh boy. We just started drama.
Go Hive.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Any feedback you have, please leave it in the comments here. If you have any suggestions for future topics, please leave it in the comments of the show. I definitely check all of those. Send me a message on the YouTubes if you feel like. I will be streaming something after this, probably Company of Heroes 2. If you would like to check that out, go to the twitch.tv/Bridger15 page there. Just leave it open, and then when you hear me yelling at you all of a sudden out of nowhere, you know I'm ready to stream there. So I'll be doing that in a few minutes here, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Have a good night. Freelancer, thank you for joining me.
It's all right. See you guys.
All right, now some people in the comment section have said that they didn't like the chat on the YouTube thing because it refreshes so slowly.
Yeah, it doesn't update fast. I imagine that YouTube is probably listening to that too, and I wouldn't be surprised if within the next couple weeks that changes.
Yeah, it does seem like a sort of stopgap chat function. Or maybe it's because they wanted it to plug directly into the comments of the videos after the fact. But I don't see a real problem with it. I mean, it does seem like there's a small delay between when somebody posts and when it appears on the public viewing thing here. It seems like it's maybe as many as 20 or 30 seconds. So I think what they're feeling is person A says something, and then when somebody tries to respond to it, person A doesn't see it until they've said 3 other things, you know. So from that point of view, I kind of agree. Check out the Fake League if I haven't already. You're gonna have to elaborate on that. I don't know what you mean. Oh, by the way, Company of Heroes 2 is in open beta, you guys. So if somebody in the chat, Gordon said he's playing the Company of Heroes 2 open beta at the moment, or he's downloading it. So we'll see you guys next week. We'll either have another General Gaming Show or we're going to have our actual inauguration of the Burning Wheel thing. We'll see. But for now, have a good night, everybody. Check out my next stream in a few minutes, twitch.tv/Bridger15. Have a good one, guys.
See ya.